I feel as though you've just killed an old friend. Acting, baby. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the four-part adventure, The Visitation, written by Eric Saywood in his first script for Doctor Who. He would later go on to become script editor from Time Flight all the way to the end of the Colin Baker era, and is directed by Peter Moffat, who previously directed The State of Decay, Adric's second story. So yeah, very important story because we got Eric Saywood, which is a big name in Doctor Who fandoms. He's basically everything he writes gets critically acclaimed. The Visitation was a really popular story. It was one of the few classic Who stories in which every episode, each episode gets higher ratings in terms of viewing figures from the previous episode. Usually you find that it's the opposite. You get part one has the highest and then each episode gets lower. But The Visitation is one of the few listed stories in which the viewing figures actually grew with each episode. And it was beloved by both critics and fans alike. In fact, I have spoken to many people who consider this their favourite Fifth Doctor story by far, which is a huge task because, my God, the Fifth Doctor has a lot of great stories under his belt. But anyway, this story sees the Doctor and our companions land in 1666, where there's some sort of plague going around. There's also some sort of a pre-scene. It's not a pre-credit scene, it's after it, but it could have easily been slotted as one, as we get a little bit before the TARDIS arrives, in which a household see a ship crash, and because they're 17th century individuals, they just think it's just comets falling, and they see fireworks. I don't know if fireworks were around during those times, but they see basically fireworks, and their house gets invaded by a creature off screen. So we have this setup, we have this main plot, and then we get introduced back to our TARDIS team, in which we start off with the story picking up from Kinder as the Doctor is bantering with Adric about using the mech suit, and they're arguing about how it was very dangerous to try it. The next time, if you feel like escaping, please walk, as the Doctor puts it. The story starts off with a lot of banter, when I say banter, a lot of arguing on the TARDIS, which makes you feel the family dynamic of the story. The early era of JNT and Fifth Doctor stories feel a lot like what Chris Chibnall tried to do with the 13th Doctor's start of era, where there's a family dynamic and the story is just about the characters as it is about the plot. As in here, we get Adric kind of basically having this kind of storyline in which he's kind of fed up that he's always been sidelined and that the Doctor's never around where he needs him. And that plays into a bit of his scenes. It's not like it's the main part of the plot, but in terms of Adric's character in this, it does play an element. He talks about it with Nessa later. And Tegan, she also reflects on her possession of the Mara in the previous story. So a great little connection, and you can see it's kind of disturbed her a bit. But she's ready to go home. Because the Doctor's trying to get her back to Heathrow Airport. And she's saying she's trying to say goodbye to Nessa, and they have a nice girly hug. And there's a bit where Adric's talking to the doctor, and Adric says that he never felt like Tegan actually liked her, and the doctor says something along the lines of, don't worry about it. Humanoids are mostly known to try to hide their emotions, and when Tegan comes into the room and they look on the TARDIS screen and they see a forestry, and Adric points out that they are at Heathrow Airport, just it hasn't been built yet. They're about, I believe they said, 300 years too early. 1666. They arrived there in 1666. Tegan gets very upset by this and kind of shouts at the doctor. I like the line where she's like, you call yourself a Time Lord. A broken clock is more accurate than you. At least it tells the time right twice a day. And then she storms off. And very strange. Something that we haven't really seen since maybe the first Doctor is basically the Doctor kind of grouchy towards his companions as he's talking to Nessa and Adric, and is like, why do humans always have to be so brash and impatient? Why does she have to be so irritated? Why does she have to be so focus on the problems and stuff? And then Nessa convinces the Doctor to try and apologise to Nessa, and the Doctor then goes outside and apologises. It's like, I'm sorry about what I said, and Nessa and Tegan is like, I'm sorry too. And then it's like, it's only a temporary problem. We will get you to Heathrow. But just think of it as a nice little trip. I mean, how many people can say they've travelled through space and time? So already we've laid the seeds of each of their characters in this story. And you can see that Eric Saywood can see that there might be some issues with having so many companions, and so especially Nessa and Adric being so close in terms of personality styles. They're the young but really smart characters, and Eric Saywood, I believe, tried to make them more standout-ish. As in this story, for a change, Nessa actually becomes, I guess you could call, the sort of main companion, as she gets a lot of scenes with the Fifth Doctor, as when they're walking around, they bump into a highwayman who befriends them. Richard Mace, played fantastically by the legendary Michael Robbins. What's he from? I can't remember what he's from. I want to say the Carry On films, but I know for a fact it's probably wrong. But anyway, and when they meet this character, they go to a barn and they discover alien technology, and the Doctor discovers that this highwayman found elements of pieces like this in a house not so far away, and when they go there and try knock on the door, there's no reply. So the Doctor actually asks Nessa to come with him and go and look inside the house, as they find an open window to try and go through. So this is a very important story because it shows really the first time that the Doctor and Nessa really had some time to themselves. This would be incredibly important if you are a huge fan of Big Finish, because for many years, Jacqueline Fielding and Matthew Waterhouse wouldn't reprise their roles. So there are a lot of stories in which the Doctor and Nessa are by themselves in Big Finish audio dramas. Peter Davison actually confessed that Nessa is his favourite companion. She's really sweet and imbalanced, and she really holds the glue to the team together. If The Doctor's the brash older brother who's just come out of upper class university, and Adric's the younger brother who looks up to his older brother but really doesn't like being treated as a child. And Tegan is the sister that feels like she's not part of the crew because she doesn't speak the techno lingo, and she's very much more down to earth, and she feels like she's much more different to them in other ways. Nessa is then, I think, is technically the mother of the crew. She keeps everyone together. If she sees two of them people arguing, she will talk to them and either try to calm them down or try to get one of them to apologise, you know. And I really like Nessa in this story. This story really does Nessa a lot of good. She not really much in terms of plot, but in terms of how she reacts with the rest of the characters, and her and the Doctor looking around the house, and just their attitude towards things, how they both just walk into the room feeling like they don't really need to answer for anyone. They're basically always on the focus, which keeps the Doctor much more interested in this story compared to previous adventures. But anyway, they go down these stairs, which should lead to the kitchen. However, the Doctor notices a brick wall, which the Doctor finds really strange, and the Doctor kind of disappears into it, which is our cliffhanger for one of the episodes. And in part 2, the Doctor reveals himself to be like it's an imaginary wall, and it's around here as well that they get attacked by a giant android that captures, which takes the form of the Grim Reaper in probably one of the coolest designs I have ever seen on Doctor Who. There's two kind of designs for the robot, because you've got this almost Asian-inspired with its really bright colours, and it reminds me a lot of like the Japanese footage of Power Rangers, but it also has a disguise to try not to scare or give away its position when there's humans around. And when it disguises itself with the Grim Reaper, where it puts on this like really like skull-looking mask, and it just looks really cool. I don't understand why they don't keep the Grim Reaper, or why don't the Randroid just walk around as it is. I mean, it's not going to get harmed by anyone, and it's going to scare anyone anyway. But I really do like the Grim Reaper look, and I really wish that the story used it a bit more. So we get them a split in the story as the android captures Tegan and Adric, and they get basically put into like a prison cell, and they have a little talk. And this is where the heart of the story really comes in, because it's really here that Tegan and Adric really start feeling like they've connected and become friends. They still banter a bit at the start. Now Tegan notices that there's a bit of brick on the wall, and she tries to break through it, and Adric's like, let me do it, I'm stronger. And Nessa, I keep calling her Nessa, I do apologise. Tegan says to Adric, yeah, but I'm more determined, so she breaks up the walls and stuff. And so we've got a lot of that. And whilst on the other end we have the Doctor, Nessa, and Mace, which basically becomes another surrogate companion. It's strange that we've had 2 stories in a row now that has a surrogate companion, despite this TARDIS crew being big as it is. And I really love Mace. He's a really fun character to hang around with. He has this like thespian way of talking. He's very dramatic. He reminds me a lot of Henry Gordon Jago from Jago and Lightfoot and Talons of Wing Chiang. So he reminds me a lot of that, and he explains a bit of his backstory that he was once an actor at the theatre, but because of the plague, he's basically lost his job, and now is basically resorts to crimes as a highwayman. It's kind of scary that we are currently in a pandemic and people are constantly losing their jobs, and this story has a character lose his job because of a pandemic in 1666, which is kind of scary, but what can you do, innit? So yeah, I really like the grouping of these three characters, and the Doctor just takes no shit from Mace. There's bits where Mace is like, he wants to sit down, and the Doctor's like, "You're going to help me, or would you like to sit here and wait until those people capture us and kill us and stuff?" And Mace is just like, "You are very aggressive when you want to be, aren't you, Doctor?" Really great banter between them. And I think Eric Stewart does a great job at pacing his story. It's a bit more slower than most stories, but for some reason it really works. It really does work. I would even say it's, in terms of just pacing, it's slower than Kinder, but this story is a hugely fan favourite, so it must be doing something right. Peter Moffat is directing his style as well. He brought his A game in State of Decay. Sadly, he doesn't have much of an opportunity to show off as he did back then, because this story, though having some gothic themings like the Grim Reaper, and later on it deals with plague and the death, there's nothing really here that screams gothic, and so Peter Moffat kind of directs it as if it was a 17th century drama piece, which is still good. Don't get me wrong, it's still good. It's just comparing it to the State of Decay. It's really strange because the State of Decay has a lot of showing offy gothic moments, and here, despite having similar gothic elements, it feels just like a 17th century drama. And so the Doctor learns that there's this creature, the Trebelespal. I can't even pronounce it. I do apologise. I'm just going to call him Lizard Man because he's a giant lizard. We all know who I'm on about. And first of all, the Doctor actually tries to help him because he thinks that he knows about the crash and thinks that he's probably just stranded and is scared, so he tries and take him off to another planet. But after speaking with him, it's clear that he just wants to overthrow Earth, and that he's a criminal, and his species, they have a very strict criminal code. If you're caught for a crime, you get sentenced to prison for life, and obviously he doesn't want that, so his plan is to basically overthrow Earth so he can defend himself. And his plan is to basically have rats with huge deadly poison that will transfer to the human race, killing everyone quicker than the current plague is currently doing. And so they kind of set off. A lot of people really like the bad guys in this story, these lizard creatures, and the way they're designed, which I must admit is really cool. It's one of the first villains which uses animatronics on the mouth, giving this story a much more believable premise than most alien creatures with Doctor Who, where the mouth either doesn't move or they find a way so that it's actually the human lips. But I'm gonna be honest, they didn't do any. The reptile people, the Troskilians, didn't really do much for me. The kind of backstory I think, is kind of generic, and they're not really, I don't think they're as threatening as Eric Saywood believes. There's some moments where it's like the tiny little arms are a bit silly and stupid, and the Doctor's trying to take it seriously, but I'm personally not. If you like them, that's totally awesome. They just didn't do anything for me, and the idea that they're going to try and conquer the world by poisoning rats. They also can mind control people as well. That's another great thing about them. But there's some bits, especially when the suit is on location shooting, and it's going around with the hood, with the horses. I don't know, it just cracks me up, and I just couldn't take it too much seriously. However, there is one element to this story which is very memorable, as at one point the Doctor gets captured and gets taken to the cells, and he tries to escape with his sonic screwdriver, but the door opens before he could, and the bad guy basically sees that the Doctor has some sort of device, a sonic device, and tells him to put it on the floor, to which then the reptile guy, the lizard guy, shoots the sonic screwdriver. This is the last appearance in classic Who that uses the sonic screwdriver. It will not appear again until the TV movie, and won't appear again in regular use until Rose in 2005, which is really important when you think about it, because since the introduction of the sonic screwdriver, especially in the third and fourth Doctor era, the sonic screwdriver was used a lot, and it was used basically to break down doors and to get him out of a tight situation. And like K9, John Nathan Turner didn't like this element of the story, so he wanted to get rid of the sonic screwdriver as much as possible. So despite really the Fifth Doctor using it heavily in one story, for to Doomsday, he decided that the Sonic must go and get destroyed, and so the Sonic's dead, and we get a great line in which the Doctor proclaims that he's killed his friend, which I really like. So the Teleskel gets to London, where it has a secret base in a bakery in London, and the Doctor and all the crew race to get there, only for there to be a little confrontation between our characters and the bad guys, a bit of a fight. And during this, the Doctor, with a flaming torch, accidentally drops it onto the floor, and it is near one of the villain's guns, an alien gun, and because it gets heated, it starts to explode, and all the human characters run out, and it explodes, destroying the bakery, setting off a fire, and the Doctor throws all the poison in the fire, destroying the poison forever. And this would be the Doctor Who's explanation for the Fire of London, an event that happened in 1666, in which all of London basically went ablaze because all the houses were made of wood, and they were so close together. And when a bakery caught fire, basically it lit the entire city. And because of that, we now have rules of separating houses as much as possible, and all these fire precautions. So, according to Doctor Who, it was the Fifth Doctor who caused it, technically. This is really funny because in, I believe it's Pyramid of Mars, the Fourth Doctor states that he was mistaken for being the cause of the Great Fire of London. And it turns out it was him, just not him yet. It was this incarnation of the Doctor, which is really funny. And so The story ends with our TARDIS crew basically just running in the TARDIS, and the Doctor proclaims that this fire should be let to burn, and he'll explain later. And that's the end of the story, and that's the Visitation. Overall, it is a classic for a reason. It might be a slower pace, but that slower pace is there for a reason, as this story has a lot of great character moments. It probably has the Fifth Doctor at his most grumpy, as he kind of takes out kind of the problems on his other companions, but you do feel for him, and you do really want, still root for all these characters. Tegan and Adric get a lot of characters together, and because of that they start feeling more like a friendship, and the family dynamic really kicks in this story. And to see Nessa trying to glue everyone together, Sarah Sutton is just a star. She is just a star. End of story. She's just a star. Eric Saywood would like to go on to write some of Doctor Who's greatest adventures. Just a great start to a writer's first experience to Doctor Who. So there you go. So join me next time, where we will be tackling some Big Finish audio dramas, the first Fifth Doctor in our chronological ordering, as we experience a spaceship that gets caught up in an alternate dimension or universe. So join me next time for The Starmen. See you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!